So I'm a Cinemasins hater, okay? I don't deny it. I stand by it. I'm anti it. But you know what I am a super fan of? The Prince of Egypt. Arguably the best thing DreamWorks ever did. So basically, I've seen this like thousands of times. Last year, those guys released An Everything Wrong with the Prince of Egypt on my birthday, no less. So it was a personal attack. It was a shot heard around the world. And I didn't watch it because I stopped watching CinemaSins around 8 million years ago. So in about 2017, if I remember right, it was the Planet of the Apes and some Hunger Games. I think it was Catching Fire. One that eventually turned me off to it. Like they were dumb, inaccurate comments that just made me very irritated, and I just stopped watching them. And Bob Vids, I found out later, did some really great videos like debunking and like correcting their videos and their channel as a whole. It really shows how god awful terrible their content is. But since I'm here and my birthday was the other day, I feel like, why not do my own reaction response debunking thing, whatever? Because I have personal stake in this, as we've discussed. We're skipping the first 2.5 because they complain about these things all the time. They're the drags of jokes, get over it. But this one's pretty baseless. There are a few verses, particularly like in Exodus, that they're likely thinking of, but that's talking about idol worship, which this movie isn't. And that's assuming they're actually referring to anything in the source material at all.
So also, I love that DreamWorks has a content warning at the front of this that basically says, hey, we may have changed your religion a bit, but hope we did you proud.
That's not what this says. And they're not changing the religion, they're taking liberties with history. The story they cover in the movie takes place from Exodus 2 to 14. 7 of those chapters are actually just the plagues, which they cover in one song. So there's a lot of things that aren't filled in that they decide to show in the movie. So this comment is inaccurate, irrelevant. And also, how is it the sin? Like, how is it something wrong with the movie? It's not even the movie.
This Zero Cumulus is on for some time.
How dare we have a cinematic and aesthetic intro that flows with the music? It's an introduction.
This is terrible line management. Why do you have this line coming around the left of this pillar, only to walk around the right of this one? There seems to be plenty of room to the right of that first pillar to give them a straight shot.
This comment about the line management is kind of odd because they are slaves, so I'm not sure why it's surprising for slaveholders to have their slaves do nonsense just to make it more hard. That's not exactly the most outlandish thing in the world to believe. Also, as you can see, there are lines coming from every different direction, including on both sides of all the pillars that you see. So if they all went the same direction, things would get bottlenecked and crowded. So this actually might be more logical than he's implying. He says that there's clearly enough space on the right side, but there's also clearly lines coming from there too, so...
Let's talk about Kevin's plan. Is this really the best you could come up with? If you can sneak the kid out of town while the guards are going house to house, haven't you pretty much done what needs to be done?
The logic is that they need to get rid of the baby. They can't just get rid of him now, hide him now, and then bring him back. They can't have him at all. It was hard enough to hide him for the time that they did. In this situation, at least in her head and her prayers, there's a chance that he might be okay. Otherwise, he's ripped out of her arms and killed however they're going to kill him. We don't even know if she's aware of how the babies are going to be killed, or she has to kill him herself.
I feel even more confident sending this, knowing the actual text basically says she left him where she knew Pharaoh's daughter bathed. How she knew that probably deserves its own sin, but...
And unless he's not talking about the Bible, it doesn't say this. And the Nile is the Nile, so everyone did everything with it.
Miriam watches while her baby brother's basket encounters every single reason why you shouldn't put your baby in a river to decide its fate.
Why is this a sin? It's a movie. Also, why is this a separate sin from when you were talking about how ridiculous her plan was earlier?
Pharaoh's wife isn't bathing in this scene. What? It's in the actual Bible.
Okay, not even 2 minutes in, he's complaining about a lack of naked women, the objectification, and like jerky meathead college bro energy. There was no bounds with this guy. I wouldn't be surprised. Nope, let me not say that. Besides, it says she went to bathe. She might have spotted the basket before she started. Also, it's a family movie.
This little girl has just waltzed her way right into the royal palace without being detected.
She's not in the palace. This is still the bank of the river. It's like an opening. Also, she's clearly moving a barrier. She's actually also there in the Bible. She speaks to the daughter, so are we not questioning how that happened? This is a sin for the sake of a joke, and it's not a good one. Anyone watching likely knows that they're going to raise him. That's kind of the movie you're watching. So who cares really how she knows? Maybe it's a little girl making an assumption that a little girl might make.
Attempted fratricide, but also chariot races. Chariot race results say more about the horse and the chariot than they do about the horse whipping rock.
Are you sitting? Guys doing stupid stuff that might get them killed? And them wanting to race their horses? As if there's something wrong with the movie? Who's gonna tell them that this stuff happens in real life?
Come on, Moses, admit it, you always looked up to me.
Mid-chase puns.
Does he not understand trash talking? You can do that during a chase. Well, it's not a chase, it's a race. So that's a bit odd.
Get that they are entitled royalty kids who might actually go about destroying in the name of racing, but they are young men at this point, easily college age. The idea that they would be so reckless as to fuck up the Sphinx at this old an age is ridiculous.
College students get up to stupid, reckless, illegal things all the time. Also, they clearly didn't expect this to happen, but it's kind of a little too late to stop it. They're already on the scaffolding. What do you want them to do? Stop?
Great joke and all, but if the nose was really destroyed during Sphinx construction, do you really think they would have been all like, oh well, guess we're gonna go no nose on this one?
He's questioning the logic of a literal joke that he points out is a joke. It's clearly not the actual Sphinx either. In fact, because of the pillars around it, I don't even know if we're supposed to think it's a Sphinx. It's just a reference to the Sphinx.
Why do the gods torment me with such reckless, destructive, blasphemous sons?
Bad parenting?
Sinning character traits? Huh?
I know he will live up to your expectations.
Being wrong.
He's not wrong. He builds up Egypt until things go crazy. Also, he's just being a good brother. Are you sinning? A plot point? A character trait?
Wrong. Is this how they filled wineskins back then? Because it's really wasteful.
And now we're sitting potentially historically accurate filling of wineskins as if that's important. I mean, they clearly don't know if it's real or not, so what if that's just how they did it? Why is that a problem with the movie? It's also not funny, so really what's the point? More quote-unquote sins just for the sake of a joke?
We offer you this delicate desert flower.
Sex trafficking.
Yes. That's what they're showing. That's how it worked.
As they sling her around like Princess Leia on a chain, I'll remind you, yes, the Bible is horny as
So how is this sin different from when you pointed this out earlier?
As royal chief architect.
Does Moses have any experience with... You know what? I get it. Experience isn't the deal here. It's just nepotism and political paybacks.
This would be a fair enough comment, but we actually have no idea what Moses does outside of the chariot race we saw at the beginning. Maybe he does have experience in this. It's really not all that important, especially since we also don't see him do anything as royal chief architect. It's not important to the story.
Century. We're about to find out this is someone that's been tied up here, and I can't decide which is more ridiculous. That they would sit this still for this long to maintain this sexy silhouette effect, or that they just stayed kneeling on the bed even though their legs are completely free to move.
You know, I don't think I ever noticed that his legs appear to be free. Maybe they're not, but that's a fair enough comment, which again, therefore muddies the whole idea that this is just entirely satire and jokes, because that would qualify as a valid, critique or observation. So that's a bit awkward.
But also, the fact that he ends up exiled and meets back up with her and marries her is, well, this story has a lot of convenience. I suppose it could be taken as God working in mysterious ways, but this story packs more coincidences than Forrest Gump.
Especially since this doesn't happen in the Bible, you don't have to chalk anything up to God working in mysterious ways. It's a movie.
I never told you?
Why on earth would Miriam think the Pharaoh was in the habit of admitting to taking in Hebrew children when he's the same Pharaoh who had them killed?
Seti doesn't think they did anything wrong. Why would he? So, why wouldn't this be history they know about, to be honest?
Our mother said you were adrift in a basket to save your life!
How can she possibly expect Moses to believe this, no matter how true it is? She bumps into him once 25 years after the fact and thinks he should just believe her.
She's also been waiting for potentially decades for him to come and save them. She doesn't exactly have a lot of time. I don't think she thinks he should believe her. She's just putting the idea in his head and giving him this information because this is her chance.
She sings a song he had sung to him when he was a newborn infant, yet somehow he remembers it. I can't remember which annoying song was stuck in my head last week. She's crying? Look, I'm amazed she even remembers that song, but I'll chalk it up to being something the family sang all the time years after they put the baby Moses in a death basket. But she's crying like she thinks he should be just as moved here. Like, remember that faint tune you probably struggled to hear over the gentle rapids of the river floating you away from us?
Also, it's not that unrealistic for her or him to remember the song. One, maybe they did sing it all the time after floating him away. But also, people can remember sounds and songs from years ago. Babies can remember sounds and voices they heard when they were in the womb. Music is especially easy for you to remember for years. Also, in the scene after they were scolded by Seti, he's whistling it. So clearly it's something that stuck with him. Even if he doesn't remember where he heard it, he's likely repeated it himself for years.
She's crying like she thinks he should be just as moved.
Or she's crying like she just saw her little brother who they gave up years ago, who they believe is meant to save them, and he knows nothing.
Man, look at these skinny ass dogs. Feed those things.
No one tell him about Salukis, Ibizenhounds, or Pharaoh hounds.
Telling the story of that one time you murdered all the babies by painting it on a wall. Why did you commission a giant temple mural of the baby slaughter?
Because they kept records. They kept their histories. And they didn't think they did anything wrong. They're like, man, that campaign went so well, swimmingly, so smoothly. That was fantastic. We really held back the Hebrews.
He had a bad dream and then woke up and saw a murder wall, and he's just going to turn his life upside down immediately. Whereas when I had a bad dream and woke up to see a murder wall, I just rolled back over and went to sleep and let the FBI keep doing their job.
He's finding out his entire world may be a lie. He dreams of an event he apparently had never heard of, and then looks and finds that it really happened. And that genocide itself may be shocking enough for Moses. Your quote-unquote jokes mean nothing for logical character progression. Besides, the story has to move.
Sometimes, for the greater good, sacrifices must be made.
Like eating a Taco Bell?
They were only slaves.
Super racist.
Oh wow, the Pharaoh enslaving thousands of Hebrews is racist against Hebrews? And that's something wrong with the movie? It doesn't work as a joke either. It's just a pointless observation. It's kind of like, yeah. It's like if you were sitting in the movie theater watching this movie or whatever, and dude next to you leans and says, wow, that guy's racist. Aren't you like, yeah. Yeah. Or at the very least, wouldn't he have to be? Another pointless, unfunny joke.
Is this where you found me?
Moses,
Please try to understand.
How does he know this is where he was found? Because there's water here?
Oh my god, no one's saying he knows, but it's also just, he's being dramatic. His entire worldview is shattered.
Also, how does she know he means his adoption, and why does she immediately drop her guard and tell the truth?
One, because what else could he mean? Two, she's probably already talked to Seti and probably just assumes he knows. And three, the story has to move. We don't know how he found out, and don't act like this is the most illogical way for it to happen.
Did they just have some sort of sibling slaving program in Egypt where they let families just hang out and do completely different types of tasks in the same area?
She's likely helping the carvers. There's probably water in this picture she's holding, and you use water when you're carving stone to keep away dust and everything like that. Would families be together? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe they would, but they're not doing completely different tasks.
Everything about this staging makes it seem like an accidental death. I know much has been made about how the film team gathered together 600 leaders and faith communities to get everything in this correct. But you're telling me not a single one of them balked at? Remember that part where Moses murdered a guard in cold blood, hid the body, and fled out of shame?
Moses didn't murder a guard in cold blood. He was defending someone. It's still a family movie. They're probably just going to show it in a way that's less graphic and viscerally terrifying.
Everything about this staging makes it seem like an accidental death.
You can call it accidental death, but looking at it from a legal standpoint, it probably could be argued as second-degree murder. There's no premeditation, but it was extremely reckless. You can argue disregard for the life of the person. You could argue he clearly meant to harm him. And tackling someone when they're on the edge of this thing, extremely likely to cause death. And he attacked him intentionally, so could still be called murder. Just a particular degree of murder.
If I say days, night it will be written.
Politics.
Keep your weak, sorry excuses for one-liners away from one of my favorite lines in this movie.
Also, why the hell do you keep wearing that thing after he left the city? It can only add heat and help him be identifiable. So why do you wait so long to ditch it?
One of the reasons they wore wigs in ancient Egypt is because typically royal men would have their head shaved, and to protect their bald head, they would wear wigs. So yeah, I would identify him as a royal. That was also something wigs were used for, but who's looking for him out here? Yeah, he probably should have ditched it if he was worried about being identified, but it was the only thing protecting him from the sun. We see his head isn't shaved, so that's a valid nitpick, but that's not what they said.
Wow, his past got erased super fast. My illegal duck adoption charges stayed with me for 15 years.
Stupid joke equals problem with the movie. Cliche.
I understand why Moses just surrenders to the sandstorm, but I'm not sure how it doesn't kill him, or at least eat off half his skin. Has the movie ever sandstormed?
Apparently, it's not uncommon for people to not die in sandstorms. Which is kind of fortunate considering how common they are in some parts of the world. He was buried though, and we're not sure for how long, so it's a valid observation and question overall, but their reasons were wrong.
Ladies, you've cleaned every inch of me. Whoa, I was wrong.
The Bible is horny, yo.
Does he think this scene was plucked directly from the pages of the Bible? Because that's weird. Also, you've seen this like 3 times already.
My father, Jethro, high priest of Midian.
Is she the narrator?
How dare she inform him of who the man is, especially when it's her father.
That is a fake-ass looking fire.
It is a fake fire. This is a movie.
Nothing humbles a prince like having to be a midwife to a birthing goat.
Why are we sending Moses being a shepherd? Is it a joke? Now I'm confused.
This movie glosses over attraction, courtship, and a host of other human emotions just to marry these two as quickly as possible. Also, this Heaven's Eyes song isn't even about them falling in love at all. It's about understanding things from a greater perspective. I'm starting to feel like squeezing the entire book of Exodus into 90 minutes may have been too tall a task.
It's not the entire book of Exodus. Also, they cover a lot of things in this song. We see them. They don't skip them. They're interacting throughout the song. They dance. He gives her a flower. They deliver the lamb. He interacts with her siblings. There's a scene of them talking to the father. It's all there. If you pay like an ounce of attention, it's clearly there right in front of you. Also, courtship isn't an emotion.
I know every convenience in this movie could probably be chalked up to Providence and all, but the sheep running off and just happening to lead Moses to God's eternal brushfire seems convenient and unnecessary.
I mean, why else would he end up in the cave? Yeah, this isn't how it happens in the Bible, but I'm pretty sure you would have sinned if he was just chilling by the mountain of God and then a bush spontaneously caught fire. Come off it. It would have been God fire ex machina.
Who made the deaf, the mute, the seeing, or the blind? Did not I? Now go!
It's kind of a weird flex to brag about creating the disabled people on Earth.
Pretty sure he's just saying that he created all men, including Moses, including Pharaoh, and so he can have it happen however he wants it to happen. Also, Moses was a stutterer, something you point out later, so it would mean something in that context. Like, yes, I know you speak like this. I made you, and I can still use you. You can still do it.
Hey, boss, how are we gonna write this conversation where he tells his wife he heard from a fiery bush in the mountain caves and she takes him seriously? Mute the dialogue and swell the music. Brilliant.
Probably not the craziest thing she's heard from him at this point. Also, she's the daughter of a high priest. Maybe this isn't shocking to her.
I am the morning and the evening star.
I keep using this phrase, but no one can tell me who's the afternoon moon.
You sinned this already, just without this specific stupid joke. And again, I am the morning and evening star. If I say day is night, it will be written. That's good. I am the morning and evening star is good. That is a flex. I wish I could walk around saying that. Also, is the moon the opposite of a star to him? Does he know space? Oh no, apparently he doesn't because he thought there was no gravity in it. My mic died after that last one, so I lost like 8 minutes of footage. I have to do the rest of this again. So that's super cool. Anyway,
Cool snake trick and all, but actually your brother Aaron did that one first. He was also the one that did the Bloody Nile thing, too. You guys were like a tag team duo, basically a Mesopotamian Penn and Teller. In fact, the movie also leaves out that you're the one that had trouble speaking, so you're the teller in this relationship. The Aaron shade is real, yo.
So this is another one of those kind of real questions, sort of. The fact that Aaron was very much involved in the beginning in the Bible. However, while Aaron was the one who carried out several of the miracles and spoke directly to Pharaoh, God was speaking directly to Moses. So this is just kind of like a streamlined way to be like, yeah, Moses is still the character we're focused on. This is just who we're paying attention to. This is who we're dealing with. It's called the Prince of Egypt, not the Prince of Egypt and Penn. That was a stupid joke. Ooh, I should join Cinemasins.
Isn't it a bit weird that the power of God is being demonstrated here as a snake, which is the form the devil took to talk Adam and Eve into f***ing over all of mankind?
God would have made snakes too, so he can do whatever he wants. Also in ancient Egypt, there's a level of reverence held for snakes, specifically the cobra, because the cobra was associated with the goddess Wadjet, and among other things, Wadjet was the protector of royalty, and to symbolize royalty, they also wore a raised cobra on their headdresses. So, I'm not exactly a theologian, but it's also not weird for the staff to turn into a snake.
Ramses' magicians sure need a lot of darkness, shadow, and mirrors.
It's almost as if they're putting on a dramatic show. Also, darkness, smoke, and mirrors, isn't that just what people say magic is? It's an odd complaint.
They list all the Egyptian gods, and it's honestly longer than the Begat section of math.
He's complaining about a song, which is odd. Also, the music in this movie, like even they said, is some of the best music. They even called it some of the best music, like the best music of any animated film. Because it is. Hans Zimmer and Steven Schwartz absolutely slayed the game. They established the first chain restaurant. They cooked, served, ate, cleaned up, and shut down, and there are no more restaurants. And that's not even nearly all of the Egyptian gods. It's not even all the most well-known ones. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised that Cinemasins knows nothing about Egyptian gods.
I think we're supposed to believe that Moses made a stick turn into an actual snake, and that these guys are hucksters pulling vipers out of a hat. But how did they have this whole stage show ready when no one knew Moses was even showing up today?
Shockingly, another valid question, but you can still count them probably on one hand. Why is all this set up when Moses was a surprise? But it's also surface level and unimportant. First of all, you don't know if these people typically have these things set up. Maybe they do, just in case Ramses wants a show. But also, they're putting on a show to outdo Moses. Move on, that's the point.
Tell your people, as of today, their workload has been doubled.
Sweet, cool, awesome. Even the ribbon dancers behind you?
Stupid joke. Also, you're assuming that the ribbon dancers are Hebrew slaves. They might not be.
The Bible Aaron was super supportive and on Team Moses right from the giddy up. The movie's got to put conflict everywhere it can, so...
You pretty much already said this when mentioning earlier how Aaron was involved. And, yeah, they chose to do that with no real clue from the Bible for it. In fact, evidence to the contrary, but there's your artistic license.
Look, I'm not trying to be sacrilegious or anything, but the frog plague would have been kind of awesome, right? I'm just saying, of the 10, the look a bunch of frogs one seems like a cakewalk. No one in Magnolia seemed all that put out by it.
No, it would not be. This is one of the actual plagues. Are you sinning the Bible at this point? They're just following the source material. Also, the frogs were everywhere. Not only does that taint the Nile, but they were everywhere. They were in people's homes. They were in their storehouses. They were everywhere. That's not a cakewalk. Are you insane? Also, Magnolia was a bad movie. What was even the point of the frogs? No one can explain that to me.
One thing about doing the plagues in a cool 3-minute montage is that you lose all of the wishy-washy Pharaoh stuff, where he's all like, okay, fine, go, psych! And honestly, hearing Ramses say psych would have been super great. So here's a plague of sins.
Oh.
Are you bloody kidding me? See, this is another one of those examples of them mixing in jokes with their occasional actual questions, which makes the entire, set up parody satire argument for their entire channel completely break and fall apart. Now, I sound like a broken record like them because I've already said this, but it's just, the jokes are bad. The critiques aren't even valid 5% of the time, and the entire thing is a waste of time. And the fact that I have to do this the second time, I'm sorry I'm exposing you people to this.
Let your people go.
But how do you get up there, though?
The same way he got up there earlier in the movie. We don't see it, but who cares? Maybe there's a way to climb on the other side. This is one I really don't think is bad, but I guess just concluding it amongst everything else, everything is just very pointless. You can't just watch the movie. It means nothing that he's up there. It's just, if anything, it's just a cool visual thing. Pointing this out is, while would fit with how their channel started out of being cool, cute little jokey, whatever things, surrounded by everything else, it just makes it more aggravating.
Hoped I would find you here.
Well, it's a good thing that you were able to get here without any guards or security stopping the guy that's literally bringing plagues on them.
You think any of the guards care at this point? With the horror befalling their nation? They're probably in hiding. Besides, they go to him after each plague in the Bible, so they get there somehow.
Why doesn't Ramses just kill Moses and say he disappeared? He's not a good guy, Ramses, is he?
Maybe he doesn't want to kill his brother. And that doesn't happen in the Bible.
And with its blood?
What? Where's the blood coming from? How do you get the blood from the sweet tiny... No!
Sinning killing a lamb is pathetic, especially when the real sin is actually that this doesn't look much like a sheep.
It's biblically accurate, but it's also a kid's movie that is showing the murder of a bunch of kids.
Family movie. PG movie. Not necessarily a kid's movie. Besides, you were the one complaining earlier about the princess not being naked, about Moses not more obviously killing someone, and now you're complaining about this? Like, where's the consistency? Also, like you said, it's biblically accurate. What do you want them to do? Just not include it?
Letting your baby crawl near a wheel in the first place.
In the spirit of Cinemasins' annoying, jerky, nitpicky character, how do you know it was her baby? How do you know it's not somebody else's baby? Also, how did you know that the baby was initially crawling near the wheel? Maybe he just wandered over. You don't know.
Moses comes out with the 10 Commandments, and that was the end of the story of Moses and the Hebrews.
What's the sin here? That the movie ended? Also, this is the plan that you know this movie isn't all of Exodus, unless you just don't know where the rest of the Moses and the Hebrew story takes place, and how a lot of it's still in Exodus. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't.
Also, forcing the bringing down of the 10 Commandments to be the inspirational end to your movie when it was one of the most disappointing and depressing moments of Moses' profiting career.
I mean, not until after he got down. I'm sure getting them was cool. Well, we did it. I'm still 1000% anti-Cinemasins. Like, they're not entertaining, they don't know anything, and all you really get out of it is a bunch of dumb one-liners that, like, would have been the same ones that, like, the annoying dude down in front would have made during the movie because he thinks he's too intelligent and good to just enjoy a film. The biggest flaw of this entire experience is that I had to give them views in order to do this. That's my biggest regret here. Will I ever do this again? No. Watch The Prince of Egypt. It's really good. Watch Bob Vid's videos about Cinemasins. They're also really good. And, yeah. That's all from me. Thanks for watching.